Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you're all doing well. Having a nice lead up to the holiday season. I hope everybody has a nice new year as well. I had this idea suggested to me a little while back of doing some live writing sprints. I don't know, that just kind of stuck in my head, and I've had some time recently to plan out some different videos. And so what I wanted to do today, because I have just so much work coming up over the next week in terms of research to do and things to read for some interviews I'm doing and other things I'm going to outline in my 2025 reading and writing plans video, which should be coming out right after this. I just wanted to, dedicate some time to this thing that I'm working on right now, which in my mind I'm conceptualizing as a novel of sorts. It's kind of all in this notebook right now. There's a little bit typed up. I've got some different beginnings of scenes, beginnings of chapters, a lot of scattered ideas. But it's a very weird way of writing, I guess, for me at least, probably influenced by a lot of the stuff I've been reading. What I wanted to do was dedicate a bunch of time to this so I don't let it slip off my plate, and something I can kind of set to the side with, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 pages of work today and feel comfortable coming back to it in a week or two. So anyway, my plan, I guess, is I just wanted to kind of introduce this. I'm going to go write at a coffee shop for a little while, maybe 3-4 hours, read a little bit in between, and just have a nice, productive late morning, early afternoon of work, and then talk about kind of what I'm working on, read some of it. Hopefully it's somewhat interesting to you guys. I can't promise it's going to be good, but I've had these ideas in my head for a while, which I'll kind of talk about. But I guess the way I'll just describe it for now is it's very sensation-based writing, focused on feeling and kind of evoking a sense of really deep sensations, whether the itch in your hand or the feeling of your foot pressing against a crease in the floor. But in terms of plot, very scattered and confusing, but moving forward in a way. And that's kind of what I don't know, it's hard to explain it, and I'll see how all of this goes. But I've got some ideas, got some thoughts, and I hope you guys enjoy this video a little bit. I did want to do another writing one before I get into all the books I've been reading lately. I have some I'm going to finish. About 3 books I'll finish either today or tomorrow, and then some more coming up, and then I'll kind of highlight what my plans are for the next couple weeks. And again, thank you guys so much for watching as always. This is kind of a stupid video, but I'm excited to write a bit and read some of it to you guys and share some of what I'm working on. And yeah, see you guys in a few hours. Alright, we are back. I swore I was going to be home earlier than this. Late in the day, my brain doesn't quite work so well, but I've been writing a bunch, reading a little bit too. I really had a great time today. It was definitely one of those days where ideas weren't flowing perfectly, and things I thought that were good didn't quite end up being good on the page, and I maybe have more doubts than I did before the day started, but there's also more writing and more things that I'm excited about. So I think it was a good day overall. The way I kind of did things was, for me, I've been handwriting, and then immediately after I finish a section, going to the computer, but today was a little different. I did some writing on the computer and things like that. But everything that I'm kind of happy about and finished with is in a file here. And so I guess I'll just read a little bit of what I'm doing and kind of talk about what I'm thinking, where it might be going, some of the ideas and I had today, and some of the doubts as well. In general, I have a bunch of different like chapter section starts. Again, I think I said this before I left, but it's very sensation based. Just I want it to be a little odd. One of my friends who I've been sending stuff described it as like liminal. Like that's kind of the idea I'm going for a little bit, but I don't know. It's hard because you do something to advance the plot and it just doesn't feel like it fits exact. So it's just. But the idea that stuck with me for a while was I just had this thought maybe a month ago or so of somebody viewing a painting and having this sort of like physical reaction to it. This like itching, their hands are itching, they're clawing at their hands. And I don't know, it's just kind of weird and odd, but it kept coming back to me. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to write it. So that's the way this scene started without any real idea of where it was going. I actually started it in the first person. It has since changed to third. And it's this girl who's having this physical reaction to this painting, and this boy who is not actually sure if he's seeing what is there. So I don't know if I have arranged it perfectly. It's gone through some different interpretations, but it's supposed to be like he's seeing her clawing her hand out, blinks hard, and she's not really doing that. She's just lightly scratching. And so it's meant to just, be... I don't know. I want it to be fun, but anyways, I need to stop explaining it. I'm just going to read like maybe the first page or two. So it makes my palms itch, she said. She stopped scratching and began pulling, the rough edges of her fingernails stretching the skin upwards, blood showing itself in the shape of a semicircle, filling the indent wrapped around her thumb. He tried to move forward but remained frozen, eyes fixed on the blood, the skin, the tearing, the clawing. He blinked hard twice, and the sight dissipated. She was grazing her open hand lightly, tracing those fortune-telling lines with the tips of her fingers, holding a slight gap between them and her palm. He could see the relief in her eyes, and the way her spine shivered from the exchange of energy that exists only in the absence of contact. It makes my palms itch, she said, as though, having said it once already, she'd decided it needed emphasizing this strange and highly specific physical reaction. That's odd. He turned towards the wall, where the nearly square but a little too long vertically canvas hung. Midwestern flatlands, he guessed, grass too tall in some spots, absent in others, no barn, only a rusted sign for a drive-in movie theater, which, if left abandoned much longer, might begin sprouting plants out of its letters. The wooden fence had a tinge of purple to it, like looking through a pane of violet glass, and it was shadowed in all the wrong places. He knew this somehow, but could not explain it. There's something... She tucked her head to her shoulder, pressing her forearm to the opposite temple and shutting her eyes tight, as if falling from the sky, bracing herself not for impact, but merely for the several seconds of overwhelming gravitational pressure. Are you from the South? Huh? She jerked her head upwards. Your voice sounds Southern. I spent 2 months in Georgia once. A man with long hair tied tightly in a top knot stepped between them. He pressed one hand against the painting and another over the "Please do not touch" label just below. Summer camp, she finished her thought. Shall we sit? We shall, he mouthed silently, hiding a smirk, pressing tongue against top row of teeth. He exhaled, and the faded flavor of yesterday's blueberry waffles hung itself in midair. She strolled towards the only open table, and he followed, trying to fit the arch of his foot inside the lines of sealant jammed between each floor slab. The squares were rotated diagonally, depending on where you stood, one should add, and alternated between a light tan and dark gray. The lightly sunk creases could not possibly have made an impact on his thick-bottomed boots, but the nerve endings in his feet fired all the same, and suddenly he felt like a child again, sprinting across sidewalk cracks, trying to land in the perfect spot, chasing after the basketball he'd lost control of. The room seemed separated into two distinct spaces, one being a museum of sorts, paintings and photographs plastering the walls, the mediums so intertwined that they were difficult to tell apart. Large portions of text were splattered here and there, related, possibly, to the aforementioned canvases. He'd only had time to glance over one paragraph before she'd arrived, which, he had gathered, touched on the urge to run, freedom as confinement, the image of a Labrador walking slowly down Michigan Avenue. The words did not register until he recalled them, just flickered through his skull, rattling around, now settling softly. He could not tell how they were related. The left side of the room, depending on where you stood, one should add, contained somewhere between 5 and 9 tables, old dark wood with a glossy finish, chairs with powder-coated metal legs that, when dragged out to sit down in, felt like nails scraping against the chalkboard in his chest, so aggravating that he would have punched a hole in his front side to dig the board out had it gone on any longer. Reese, he recalled finally. He'd always had trouble with names, and it certainly didn't help that he'd failed to read the emails thoroughly or even all the way through for that matter, and it must have been some kind of miracle, he thought, that he showed up to the right place at the right time, as he knew neither where he was nor when it was, just that he was where he was supposed to be. Reese Matthews, she introduced herself formally, and he now felt like as much of a fool for worrying as he did for not simply checking his phone on the walk over. She was wearing a sleeveless turtleneck, maroon, and baggy tan pants, which engulfed her shoes so deeply that he could not make out the bright leather slip-ons, once she sat down, crossing left leg over right so that it stuck out underneath the small round table. He hadn't noticed the black blazer she drooped over her chair, enabling yet another chalkboard drag as she twisted around. His ears tensed backwards. So that's a good portion of what I have for the first chapter right now. But I guess the goal there was, I don't know, it felt like with a lot of the stories I've been writing, I hadn't been able to dive into a lot of what I wanted to dive into. And so I wanted to describe these small movements. I wanted to have this weird dialogue that didn't advance the plot, but kind of gave you just a sort of feeling. It's been really interesting. A lot of the scenes kind of have that similar feel. Again, I have these like little sections. One, for example, is where he's in this bookstore. That first scene, I kind of wanted to be a job interview. That was something that was suggested to me. I wasn't really sure where it was going. Again, it's like a mix between like a cafe, like coffee shop, and like a museum. There's a lot of coffee shops that have art, and so that's more what I'm thinking. But in his head, it's meant to be like he's confused between what the space really is. But I want it to be kind of a job interview. I'm still kind of figuring out the characters. That's all kind of just coming secondarily to a lot of these chapter starts I have. But I guess the idea of him working in a bookstore, her being maybe a somewhat successful writer who's opening, an independent bookstore, he just being somebody who needs a job and maybe is looking to write or like has been writing, but hasn't. He's not college educated. She is college educated. I had a lot of doubts about what kind of like store I wanted the place to be and if I wanted to incorporate writing, because a lot of the issues I have with modern fiction relate to authors writing not about themselves, but like the focus being on authors who are writing only about who are writing about their world, and their world being like college educated in the city. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just that like certain things seem to get popular and they all seem to have the same characters and the same plot. So I'm really working on differentiating something, and it does seem to me like writing about writing isn't that bad of a thing. Mainly because, as was pointed out to me, a lot of people who actually want to read are interested in writing, and how that comes about. So I think the bookstore idea isn't a bad one, but again, I don't know. I have a lot of doubts and a lot of stylistic choices I'm going back and forth on. But I do feel like this is something I want to make long and to work on for a long period of time. And I've been, wondering, next year I'll have to do my senior thesis, and I was wondering, will it be like a bunch of short stories or along like a novel excerpt? So this is something I'm definitely considering for that. There's just so many moving parts, and I've never really written a novel or even like a short story that I'm really, really happy with. So the revision process is what's always trickiest for me, and with something like this, I'm revising as I'm going, which has been a little more helpful, but I do have a lot of work to do, short stories to revise, so many things to read. So this is just something I'm trying to keep going in the background, keep progressing on. Feel free to let me know if you liked it, even if you didn't. I'm interested to hear what people think. I guess the point of this video is just to share a little bit of that, share a little bit of my experience, because I don't know. I think my goal with this whole channel in its entirety, and this will be more clear as I have some of my friends, some of my professors, just other writers in general on in the upcoming year, my dad as well, is just to kind of foster this community of people who, are interested in reading and writing in long form content in general, in thinking and in sharing ideas and critiquing ideas and books and just everything. I don't know. I mean, I'm really thankful to all you guys for watching. I'm really glad that I was able to do this and kind of dedicate a day to revising a bit, working through things, sorting out ideas, maybe even more than the writing itself. And just to be able to share some of this with you, I would love nothing more than for this to become kind of this massive thing where maybe, this isn't even, there's still remnants of this part left, and I can look back on this in a couple of years and be like, oh, that there's the first draft, I shared it here, and this is kind of what it is now. But again, no expectations. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself or anything like that. But yeah, I guess I'm running out of things to say when I just keep thanking you guys over and over. But thank you so much for watching. There will be more videos very soon. I really have no idea how long this video was or will be, but thank you as always if you've watched to the end. And let me know your thoughts on writing, on my writing, on your writing, anything below. I always love talking to you guys, and I'll see you again soon.